picture this if you can. You are standing on a quiet, typical suburban street in Albuquerque.
New Mexico.
Right, New Mexico.
Yeah.
The sun is it's beating down with that harsh, high desert glare.
Oh, yeah.
You look up at a standard beige ranch-style house, and there, sitting right on the roof, right in that little valley where the garage meets the main house, is a pizza.
A massive reach.
An extra-large, uncut pepperoni pizza.
Yeah.
Baking in the sun. The cheese is probably bubbling by now. The grease is seeping right into the asphalt shingles.
It is, without a doubt, one of the most absurd images in television history.
It's completely visually arresting and hilarious.
It's iconic. I mean, you see it on T-shirts. It's constantly used in GIFs. You even see other shows referencing it. It has totally taken on a life of its own in internet culture.
Oh, absolutely. It's basically the Mona Lisa of food-based memes, but... And this is exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. If you strip away the meme status, if you stop laughing for just a second and look at the actual context of that pizza, it is incredibly depressing.
It really is.
It's a monument to a man's total failure.
A total breakdown of communication. It represents a guy who has completely lost the ability to connect with his family using words. So he resorts to this pathetic, grease-soaked offering of fast food.
Just to try and bridge a gap that he created.
Created with murder and lies.
Yeah, it's tragic comedy at its absolute peak. And that is exactly what we are unpacking for you today. We are cracking open Season 3, Episode 2 of our favorite Albuquerque saga, the episode titled Caballo sin Nombre.
Which, for those who don't speak Spanish, translates to horse with no name.
We are going to go incredibly deep on this one. We're not just, skimming a Wikipedia plot summary. We brought the receipts today.
We have a massive stack of sources to go through.
We do. We've got the original production notes. We pulled critical reception data from Vulture and The Ringer. We're diving into the actual legal mechanics of real estate fraud.
That part is fascinating.
It is, and we have some truly wild behind-the-scenes accounts regarding the filming locations, the fans, and the actual physics of that pizza throw.
So our mission today is to really understand how this specific hour of television acts as a critical bridge. Because think about it, we are coming right off the absolute chaos of the Season 2 finale.
The mid-air collision.
Right. The debris raining down from the sky, the pink teddy bear floating in the pool. It was explosive. Yeah. But now we're moving into the much tighter, more suffocating grip of Season 3.
It's a major transition. We're going from accidental chaos to organized crime.
Exactly. And we're going to track 3 distinct threads to show how that happens. First, Walt's personal life, which is just loud, messy, and humiliatingly out of control.
Put it mildly.
Second, Jesse Pinkman's surprising and very quiet strategic power play. And third, the silent, creeping horror of the Salamanca Cousins.
The Cousins, just walking sharks, closing in on the protagonist.
Sharks in shiny suits.
So folks, strap in. This is going to be a wild ride. We are talking about the chemical composition of pepper spray. We are talking about stigmatized property laws. We are talking about incredibly shiny axes. And yes, we will break down the physics of a pizza throw.
Let's start at the very top. The title.
Right. Caballo sin Nombre.
It's such a deliberate, specific choice by the writer. Obviously, it connects immediately to the soundtrack. The episode is bookended at the very beginning and the very end by the song A Horse with No Name by the band America.
And that song is such a classic earworm, isn't it? You hear those opening acoustic chords and you're instantly transported.
You're on a road trip in 1972.
Exactly. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It feels so breezy. It feels like this chill, soft rock, easy listening anthem.
It feels breezy on the surface, sure. But have you ever actually sat down and deconstructed those lyrics? Because Peter Gould, the writer of this episode, he certainly did.
Okay, lay it on me.
The song isn't just about a nice, sunny ride in the sand. It is about negation. It's about the complete erasure of the self.
How so? Like, literally what in the lyrics points to that?
Look at the core lines. In the desert, you can remember your name, because there ain't no one for to give you no pain. The song is suggesting that your identity, your name, who you are to other people, your relationships, that is the source of your pain. The civilized world brings pain, so to escape it, you have to go into the desert and become totally anonymous. You have to be the horse with no name.
Wow, that's actually incredibly bleak.
Very bleak.
But it fits Walter perfectly at this exact moment in the story.
It fits him like a glove. Think about his status in this episode. He is in this profound state of limbo. He's been kicked out of his own house.
So he's not really dad or husband in any functional way anymore. Skylar stripped those labels right off him.
Right. But he's also not fully Heisenberg yet. At least not openly to the public or the law. He's just this guy living in a sad, furnished condo, drifting.
He's just floating in the wreckage of his own life. He's separated from the moral anchors that kept him somewhat human, but he hasn't completely embraced the monster role yet either.
Precisely. He is wandering through a desert of his own making. The title underscores that total loss of identity. He's trying to figure out who he is if he isn't a father and isn't a teacher. Is he just a criminal? Is he a victim? Right now, he's nameless.
And we should definitely mention the pedigree behind this script, because the credits here are significant. Written by Peter Gould, directed by Adam Bernstein, it originally aired on March 28th, 2010.
It's the 22nd episode overall, and Peter Gould is a name that every fan should venerate. He is the writer who really developed the Saul Goodman character.
He eventually co-created the spin-off, of course.
Exactly. And you can see his fingerprints all over this script, particularly in the legal maneuvering we're going to discuss later with Jesse. Gould just loves that intersection of the hilarious and the terrifying.
He totally masters that specific tone where you're sitting there and you don't know if you should laugh or scream.
Which is basically the sweet spot of this entire franchise.
It really is. Okay, let's get right into the action. Segment 2. Walt's spiraling lack of control. The episode opens with Walt driving his Pontiac Aztek, and immediately the visual language of the scene tells you something is deeply wrong.
It's the windshield.
That blue tape?
Right. The director of photography, Michael Slovis, makes a very specific, deliberate choice here. He shoots Walt through the windshield repeatedly. We keep seeing that jagged, awful spiderweb crack with the bright blue painter's tape struggling to hold it together. It's literally obstructing Walt's face.
And for anyone who might have forgotten between seasons, that crack isn't just from a stray rock on the highway.
Oh no, that crack is debris. It is a direct result of the Wayfarer 515 plane crash from the Season 2 finale.
The crash he indirectly caused.
Exactly. That is a literal piece of the wreckage caused by his inaction regarding Jane's death.
So metaphorically, every single time he looks at the road, he is looking straight through the consequences of his own sins.
He is viewing the world through a fractured lens of his own making. And the fact that he hasn't fixed it yet, that speaks volumes. I mean, he is driving around with a giant "I am guilty" sign plastered to his car. But he's too stubborn, or maybe too depressed, to just call an auto glass repair shop.
So he's driving, he's drifting along, he's singing along to America on the radio, and then the red and blue lights flash. He gets pulled over.
Just a standard, routine traffic stop.
Yeah.
The officer sees the windshield, which is a massive safety hazard. He pulls Walt over.
Now, any normal person in this situation, even a normal criminal, would think, okay, keep your head down, be polite, take the ticket. Do not draw attention to the fact that you are the region's top meth cook.
Right. The survival instinct should be screaming, "Yes, officer. Sorry, officer. I'll get it fixed first thing tomorrow."
But Walt. Walt chooses violence. Not physical violence, but this intense verbal violence.
This is a massive flare-up of his ego. It's what the ancient Greeks would call hubris. Walt is sitting in that driver's seat, and in his own head, he is a kingpin. He's a big deal. He survived Tuco Salamanca. He has $500,000 in cash sitting in a duffel bag. He feels untouchable.
So when this officer, this normal civilian cop, tries to tell him what to do, Walt just snaps.
He feels insulted.
He completely tries to big league the cop. He starts arguing about the ticket, getting highly technical, saying it's ridiculous, citing regulations.
It's a full-blown masculinity crisis. Look at his life. Skylar has completely stripped him of his power at home. He feels utterly impotent there. So he's trying to assert dominance here. On the side of the road, he gets out of the car, which, by the way, is the absolute #1 rule of things you do not do during a traffic stop.
Never get out of the car. And he gets right up in the officer's face. He's shouting. He's pointing his finger. It is so cringy to watch because we, the audience, know he has zero actual leverage in this situation.
He expects the universe to bend to him just because of his intellect. He thinks, I am vastly smarter than this cop, therefore I should win this argument. But the street doesn't run on IQ points, it runs on force.
And the force arrives very quickly in the form of pepper spray.
The great equalizer.
Talk to me about that moment, because it isn't like a clean movie punch where a guy just gets knocked out. It's incredibly messy.
It is deeply visceral. Pepper spray or OC spray, it causes the immediate involuntary closure of the eyes. You get difficulty breathing, your nose starts running uncontrollably, and there is this intense, blinding, burning sensation. It completely incapacitates him in seconds.
We see Walter White, the great and powerful Heisenberg, literally writhing on the asphalt, snot pouring down his face, just screaming in agony.
It's a total, complete humiliation. It violently strips away all that fake kingpin armor he thought he was wearing.
It reminds us, and it certainly reminds him, that underneath the hat and the sunglasses, he is just a frail man in his 50s.
He has no army behind him. He has no physical protection. If he acts out in the real world, the system will just crush him like a bug.
So he gets arrested. He's sitting in the station, eyes all red and puffy. And who is the one who comes to pick him up?
Hank Schrader, his brother-in-law. And the irony in the scene is so thick you could choke on it. The head of the local DEA task force is personally picking up the region's biggest meth manufacturer from the drunk tank.
Hank is such a genuinely good guy in this scene, too. He's worried. He sees Walt looking like an absolute wreck. His eyes are swollen. He looks entirely defeated.
And this is exactly where Walt shows his manipulative brilliance. He knows he needs to explain away why he's acting like a lunatic. He obviously can't say, well, I cook meth and the stress is getting to me. So he tells Hank the truth, but just a very specific, curated slice of the truth. He tells him Skylar wants a divorce.
He essentially uses Hank's natural sympathy for a marital breakup to camouflage the criminal behavior.
Exactly. He weaponizes his own domestic misery. He knows Hank is a traditional guy who will attribute all this erratic behavior, the fighting with the cop, moving into a sad condo, purely to the stress of a separation. It's a perfect cover story. Hank is patting him on the back, feeling so sorry for him, completely unaware that he is literally comforting the villain he's been hunting.
It's brilliant and it's sickening. But after this whole ordeal, Walt realizes he needs actual legal advice. Not for the traffic ticket, but to figure out his exposure with Skylar. So he goes to see Saul Goodman.
And I just love the visual and tonal contrast here. Walt is emotional, he's messy, he's romanticizing his family and his role as a provider. And Saul is cold, hard, and strictly pragmatic.
Saul hears about the separation, and he's basically just like, great, good riddance.
Saul is the ultimate realist. He sits Walt down and explains the spousal privilege dynamic. He tells Walt that, legally speaking, Skylar cannot be forced to testify against him in a criminal court.
Right, they can't compel a wife to take the stand against her husband.
Exactly. But Saul goes a crucial step further. He analyzes Skylar's underlying psychology. He tells Walt that she won't go to the police voluntarily either because she is terrified of the fallout.
She doesn't want Walt Jr. to find out his dad is a drug dealer. She doesn't want the house and the bank accounts seized by the government.
Right. Saul correctly identifies that, in this situation, fear is a much stronger silencer than love or loyalty. He tells Walt point blank, she's bluffing. She will not blow up her own family just to get you.
And then he pivots and gives Walt some very classic Saul Goodman advice. Go find a new woman. Find someone who appreciates the bad boy vibe.
He literally suggests Thai women. He suggests just moving on entirely. Saul sees Walt purely as a money-making machine. To Saul, a wife is nothing more than a liability that slows down meth production. He wants Walt to just embrace the bachelor life of a wealthy, unencumbered criminal.
But Walt flat out refuses. He is so stubborn. He says, I am not leaving my family. He absolutely refuses to accept that he has already burned that place to the ground.
And that stubborn refusal forces Saul to take out an insurance policy. Because Walt is acting highly irrational and emotional, Saul decides he needs a professional to monitor the situation. So he hires Mike Ehrmantraut.
Well, this is a great milestone, too. This is the first time we really get to see Mike doing his primary thing, right?
In a pure surveillance capacity, yes. Saul hires Mike to bug the white residents, to keep a close eye on Skylar and on Walt. It's a really crucial plot point because it firmly establishes Mike as the all-seeing eye of the Albuquerque underworld.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the moment everyone has been waiting for. Segment 3, the pizza on the roof, the deepest dive of the episode.
Yeah, the main event.
So Walt completely ignores Saul's advice. He decides he's going to force a romantic reconciliation. He shows up at the family house, but Skylar has changed the locks. He literally cannot get his key to turn.
But he brought a peace offering, the pizza.
And not just the pizza, he specifically mentions he brought dipping sticks.
Oh, that detail just kills me. It is so pathetic.
Yeah.
He honestly thinks, I have destroyed the moral fabric of our entire lives. I have lied to your face for months. I have directly endangered our children. But hey, maybe these breadsticks with a little marinara sauce will smooth things over.
It really highlights how deeply delusional he is at this.
Now, we really need to stop right here and talk about the physical reality and the production of this specific moment. Because what we actually see on the screen seems mathematically impossible.
It's a giant, floppy, heavy disc of dough, sauce, and cheese.
Right. If you or I walked outside right now and tried to throw an extra-large uncut pizza at a cardboard box onto a roof, what would happen?
It would be a disaster. The box would catch the wind and fly one way, the pizza would slide out and fly the other way. The cheese would immediately separate from the crust. It would just land in a greasy heap on the lawn.
Exactly. Basic centrifugal force dictates that the pizza should have been destroyed midair. And the prop department on the show fully knew this. They were reportedly terrified of filming this shot. They had a massive stack of backup pizzas. Some production accounts say 10, some say up to 20, just sitting in a truck ready to go. They assumed this one shot would take all afternoon to get right.
They're ready to rig it, right?
Yeah, they figured they would eventually have to wire the pizza together, maybe glue the cheese down, or even use CGI in post-production.
They were braced for a long, frustrating day of wasted pepperoni.
And then Bryan Cranston steps up to the mark. Adam Bernstein, the director, calls action. Cranston swings his arms in this fit of rage, releases the box, and the laws of physics just decided to take a coffee break.
That's magical.
The pizza perfectly slides out of the cardboard box midair. It somehow maintains total structural integrity. It spins horizontally like a heavy frisbee, and it lands perfectly flat on the roof.
Crust down, cheese up.
Even the landing was flawless. It didn't bounce, didn't slide slowly down into the gutter. It just stuck there.
And if you watch Cranston's reaction in the clip, he barely even flinches.
That is the absolute genius of his acting.
Yeah.
He does this tiny, almost imperceptible double take, which was real. That was actually Bryan Cranston, the actor, being shocked that it worked. But he immediately stays in character. He just angrily gets into the Aztec and drives away.
Right.
If they had cut the scene right when it landed, it would have been amazing. But the fact that they held the wide shot and kept his reaction, pure serendipity.
It's one of those rare cinematic moments where reality is just fundamentally better than anything you could have scripted or animated. If they had used CGI, our brains would have subconsciously flagged it as fake. The fact that it is a real physical object behaving so bizarrely is what makes it so memorable.
It's perfect. But we do have to talk about the real-world fallout, because this scene eventually became entirely too popular.
The dark side of meme culture.
Exactly. Because this house is a real physical residence. It's not a set built on a Hollywood backlot. A real woman named Frances Padilla lives there with her family.
And the fans, they really didn't respect that boundary, did they?
Not at all. As the show exploded in popularity, people started making pilgrimages to the house in Albuquerque, which, is fine, usually taking a picture from the sidewalk. But they wanted to recreate the moment.
Meaning they're actually throwing real pizzas onto this poor woman's roof.
Constantly. Frances Padilla actually told NPR in a 2015 interview that it had become a total nightmare. She said, "We've had pizzas on our roof. We've had pizzas on our driveway. Pizzas until we're sick of looking at pizzas." Just imagine that. Imagine waking up, walking outside in your bathrobe to get the morning newspaper, and finding a giant sun-baked pepperoni pizza melting all over your roof shingles.
That is maddening, not to mention the mess. It attracts ants, it ruins the roofing material, it smells terrible in the desert heat.
It's pure vandalism, plain and simple. And it got so entirely out of hand that Vince Gilligan, the creator of the show, actually had to intervene personally. He went on the Better Call Saul Insider podcast and issued a very stern public warning to the fan base. He called the people doing it jag-offs. He said directly into the mic, "There is nothing funny or original or cool about throwing a pizza on this lady's roof."
Miss Padilla even mentioned to reporters that she started sitting outside in her driveway with a shotgun at one point.
She did. She said she felt like Granny from the Beverly Hillbillies, just sitting there trying to protect her own property.
It really highlights a deeply toxic element of modern fandom, this bizarre entitlement where people think that because they saw a place on their television screen, they somehow own a piece of it. They completely forget that real, ordinary people live inside those walls.
It actually changed how the television industry operates in New Mexico, didn't it?
It really did. The pizza incident became a major cautionary tale for location scouts across the industry. When they later filmed the movie El Camino and the series Better Call Saul, the production teams became vastly more wary of using highly visible occupied homes for iconic character locations. They started building more fake facades, or they made sure to use houses that were set much deeper on private property, behind gates. That one single pizza throw completely changed the logistical protocols for filming in Albuquerque.
That is just wild. A literal 1 in a million miraculous throw that ended up causing 1 million real-world headaches.
It really is the butterfly effect in action. Okay, let's pivot away from Walt's failures. Because while Walt is striking out with dipping sticks, Jesse is actually quietly getting a massive win. Segment 4. the real estate revenge.
So this is easily one of the most satisfying storylines in the entire series. It operates like a heist movie, but it's a completely legal heist.
So let's set the stage. Jesse desperately wants to move back into his aunt's house. This is the house he painstakingly took care of her in before she died, and it's the house he lived in during season 1. But his parents legally evicted him and kicked him out.
And since then, they've completely renovated it. They're fipping it. They put in high-end new countertops, fresh paint, new floors. They are methodically trying to erase every single memory of Jesse. And more importantly, they're trying to erase the fact that there was a functioning meth lab in the basement.
They listed the property for $875,000, which, if you're looking at the 2010 Albuquerque housing market, is a very, very nice chunk of change.
It's a premium listing. Jesse tries to go visit the property just to see it, and his dad literally blocks the front door. He won't even let his own son step inside the foyer. It's incredibly cold. The parents look at Jesse like he's an infectious disease.
So Jesse, feeling completely alienated, goes to see Saul Goodman. And this is exactly where we see that brilliant Peter Gould legal writing shine through. They hatch a scheme.
Jesse wants to buy the house outright, but he knows for a fact his parents will never, ever sell it to him. So Saul steps in to represent an anonymous buyer, and Saul confidently walks into the closing meeting with Jesse's parents and their high-priced lawyer.
And Saul just lowballs them. Hard.
The house is listed at $875,000. Saul slides a piece of paper over and offers $400,000 in cash.
The parents are instantly insulted. They are practically laughing in Saul's face. They say, "Is this some kind of joke? We have multiple offers right near our asking price."
And this is exactly the moment where Saul drops the hammer. He very casually mentions that he happens to know the detailed history of the house. He knows for a fact that it was a meth lab.
Now, help me out here with the actual legal side of this. Why does that matter so much? Can't the parents just invoke buyer beware and wash their hands of it?
Not in real estate law, no. This specific situation falls under the legal concept of stigmatized property and material defects. In the vast majority of states, and definitely in New Mexico, a seller has a strict legal duty to disclose any material facts that could significantly affect the value or the physical safety of the property.
And a former meth lab, I mean, that is a massive safety issue.
It's huge. Meth production involves highly volatile, toxic chemicals, phosphine gas, iodine, various acids. These toxic compounds literally seep into the porous drywall. They soak into the carpets. They contaminate the HVAC ventilation systems. Professional environmental remediation for a meth lab costs an absolute fortune. So by failing to disclose that the basement was a chemical lab, the Pinkmans weren't just being sneaky, they were actively committing real estate fraud.
They were trying to pass off a toxic hazard zone as a luxury family home.
Exactly. Saul calmly points out that if this fraudulent sale went through to, say, a nice young family and they found out later, the Pinkmans wouldn't just be sued in civil court for the full value of the house. They could easily face serious criminal charges for reckless endangerment.
So Saul isn't even negotiating at this point. He is straight up blackmailing them with their own lie.
He is holding a giant mirror up to their hypocrisy. Think about it. They kicked Jesse out onto the street for being a criminal, but here they are, actively committing a felony real estate fraud just to make a quick buck on a house flip. Saul leverages their fear of exposure perfectly.
The look on their faces when the trap springs shut and they realize they are completely cornered, it's just delicious to watch. They have zero options. They either sell it for the $400,000 or they risk going to prison and losing everything.
And the payoff to all this tension is the final scene of this arc. The parents are out in the driveway, packing up the very last boxes into their SUV. They hand over the house keys to Saul, who is acting on behalf of the anonymous buyer. And then, who rolls up the street?
It's Jesse! Driving his bright red Monte Carlo. The hydraulics are bouncing, the bass is thumping. He's wearing his signature oversized hoodie.
He walks right at the driveway, right past his stunned parents. He reaches out, jingles the keys, and just says, "I bought the place."
It is the ultimate mic drop.
It is a profound reclamation of his own self. His parents literally tried to paint over his existence. They tried to erase his history from that house. And Jesse took the dirty money he made from the exact thing they hate him for, meth, and he weaponized it to buy his way back into their world. It's a dark paradox, sure, but for Jesse as a character, it is a moment of immense, undeniable empowerment. He's no longer the disappointment sleeping in an RV. He is the homeowner. He holds the deed.
It is such a boss move. But, while Jesse is celebrating his victory, Skylar is dealing with her own increasingly murky moral gray areas, which brings us to segment 5, the moral dilemma.
This specific storyline often gets overlooked in favor of the pizza or the cartel assassins, but it is absolutely crucial for Skylar's character development. She decides to go back to work as a bookkeeper for her old boss, Ted Binnicky.
And pretty quickly, she discovers that Ted is cooking the company books.
He is committing massive tax fraud, hiding undeclared revenue to avoid the IRS. It's incredibly messy, it's highly illegal, and to an auditor as smart as Skylar, it's glaringly obvious. Skylar, trying to be an honest accountant, flat out refuses to sign her name to those fraudulent documents.
But I want you to listen closely to Ted's defense here. When she confronts him, he tells her, "I didn't do this for me. I did it for the business. I did it to save my employees' jobs. I did it for my kids."
Now, does that rationalization ring a bell?
It is the exact script Walt uses. I did it for the family.
Word for word. Skylar is essentially hearing Walt's core justification coming straight out of Ted's mouth. It is a brilliant narrative mirror placed right in front of her. She is starting to fully realize that so-called good men, or maybe just weak men, will effortlessly rationalize terrible illegal actions if they feel financially cornered.
And she asks Ted a question in that office that is very clearly meant for Walt. She looks at Ted and asks, "What would your daughters think if they knew?"
That is the haunting question of the whole series. She isn't just asking Ted about his tax fraud. She is desperately projecting her own waking nightmare. She is absolutely terrified that one day Walt Jr. will find out his seemingly boring dad is actually a violent drug monster.
And speaking of Walt Jr., he is carrying so much anger in this episode.
He lashes out at Skylar repeatedly. He yells at her, "Why are you doing this to Dad? Why won't you let him come home?" He has no idea about the meth. He doesn't know the truth.
And Skylar just takes it. She eats all of that venom from her own son.
This is the underlying tragedy of Skylar White throughout Season 3. In order to protect her teenage son's innocence, she has to allow him to openly hate her. If she sits him down and tells him the truth, "Hey, your dad is a major manufacturer of crystal meth," she completely destroys his worldview and ruins his life. But if she keeps quiet, she has to play the role of the cold, irrational villain who broke up their happy family for seemingly no reason at all. And she actively chooses to be the villain. It is an incredibly selfless, incredibly painful sacrifice.
She even threatens Walt with a formal restraining order later in the episode, just desperately trying to build some kind of legal wall around the house. But the emotional damage to the family is already done.
But, while Skylar is sitting there worried about IRS audits and restraining orders, there is a physical threat coming to Albuquerque that a piece of paper absolutely cannot stop. Segment 6. The Cousins.
We really have to talk about these guys. Lionel and Marco Salamanca.
They step straight out of a horror movie into the desert.
They literally do not speak. They just move. They wear those perfectly tailored metallic silver suits, the boots with the silver skull tips on the toes. They are basically walking land sharks.
And they are systematically tracking the mythical Heisenberg. To find him, they go visit their uncle, Hector Salamanca, at his nursing home.
And that scene with Hector is genuinely chilling. Because Hector can't speak either, right? He just has that bell on his wheelchair. But using a Ouija board-style letter chart, he spells out the name for them. W-A-L-T-E-R. W-H-I-T-E.
That right there is the pivotal moment where the abstract threat becomes terrifyingly specific. Before this, they were hunting a ghost. They were hunting a street legend named Heisenberg. But the second Hector rings that bell, they are hunting a flesh-and-blood man who has a home address.
And they drive straight to that address. This sequence, honestly, it's got to be one of the most unbearable, tense sequences in the entire show up to this point.
Adam Bernstein directs it exactly like a slasher film. All the ambient background sound design just drops out entirely. There's no swelling musical score. It's just the eerie sound of the desert wind outside and the slow, heavy creaking of the wooden floorboards inside.
Meanwhile, Walt is completely oblivious. He's actually broken into his own house through the crawl space to fix a patch of dry rot in the floorboards. He has absolutely no idea they are walking up the driveway.
The Cousins just silently let themselves in through the front door, and they are carrying that axe.
That axe, it is so incredibly shiny. It looks like they spent 6 hours just polishing the steel.
It's deeply ritualistic for them. To the Cousins, this isn't just a mob hit. It's a blood sacrifice. It's an offering to Santa Muerte. The shine on that axe shows that to them, this is a religious act.
So Walt, completely unaware, decides to take a shower. He's standing under the water singing A Horse with No Name to himself again. He is butt naked, scrubbing his back with his eyes closed.
It is the ultimate deployment of dramatic irony. The audience is sitting on their couches, literally screaming at the screen, "Turn around, look behind you!" We see the Cousins walk down the hall. They sit down side by side on Walt and Skylar's bed, just waiting. One of them picks up the shiny axe and rests it on his knee. They can hear the shower water running. They slowly stand up.
They walk right up to the frosted glass of the bathroom door. They stand there, just watching Walt's blurry shadow move around inside. This is it. Walt is 100% dead. There is no secret weapon. There is no chemical explosion he can rig up. He is trapped in a glass box, unarmed and naked.
And then, just as the hand goes to the doorknob,
The vibration.
a single text message arrives on one of the cousins' burner phones.
They open it up and look at the screen. It's just one single word. Polos.
And instantly, everything just stops.
The tension in the room just completely snaps. The cousins look at the phone screen. They look back at the frosted glass door. And they just turn around and quietly walk right out of the house.
This specific moment is so critical for understanding the actual power structure of the Breaking Bad universe. Because you have to ask, who sent that text message?
Gus Fring, the chicken man.
But how did Gus possibly know that the cousins were standing inside Walter White's bedroom at that exact second?
Because of Mike. Mike had literally just bugged the house earlier that day for Saul.
Exactly. Mike is acting as this invisible, highly competent guardian angel. He was sitting in his car down the street, watching the cousins on his wiretap video feed. He immediately called Gus. Gus immediately sent the text.
It perfectly illustrates that Gus Fring has absolute godlike control over this territory. Gus isn't even in the room. He might not even be in the same zip code, but one single 6-letter text message from him is enough to stop 2 psychopathic cartel hitmen dead in their tracks.
It also starkly highlights Walt's utter vulnerability. I mean, Walt eventually builds this mythology where he thinks he's the one who knocks. He thinks he is the danger. But in this scene, he is just cattle. He was literally 5 seconds away from being slaughtered in his own shower, and he was only saved by a kingpin he barely knows, acting through a henchman he doesn't even trust yet.
He's just a tiny pawn on a chessboard that is much, much bigger than his own ego allows him to realize.
He owes his continued existence entirely to the corporate bureaucratic structure of the drug trade, not to his own scientific genius. That is a deeply humbling reality, even if Walt himself doesn't know it happened yet.
So Walt unknowingly survives the axe. The pizza remains on the roof. Jesse gets his childhood home back. Let's wrap all this up with segment 7, Reception and Legacy.
When this episode first aired back in 2010, it was generally well received by critics, but it wasn't immediately hailed as an all-time classic the way later episodes like Ozymandias or Crawlspace were.
Right. Donna Bowman, writing for the AV Club, gave it a solid B+ stage. She praised the tension, specifically that incredibly stressful final 5 minutes with the axe.
But if you look at modern retrospective series rankings, it usually sits somewhere in the bottom tier. The Ringer ranked it 55th out of 62 total episodes. Vulture put it at 48th overall.
Why do you think it ranks so low comparatively? Is it just because nothing literally explodes?
I think that's a big part of it. Structurally, it is very much a table-setting episode. It is doing all the heavy narrative lifting required to set up the back half of the season. It has to maneuver Jesse into the new house. It has to logically establish Mike's surveillance capabilities, and it has to firmly introduce the physical threat of the cousins. It is all set up, with very little immediate resolution.
It's eating your vegetables before you get to the dessert.
Exactly. But without the foundation built in this episode, the rest of the season completely falls apart. You absolutely need to see Walt's pathetic humiliation with the police and the pizza to fully understand his explosive rage later on. You need to see Jesse's real estate victory to understand why he eventually feels confident enough to challenge the business hierarchy.
And the viewership numbers actually dipped a little bit for this one, too. It drew 1.55 million viewers, which was down from the Season 3 premiere.
That's a pretty standard Week 2 drop-off for cable at the time. But the fans who stayed tuned in were heavily rewarded with some incredibly deep character psychology.
So bringing this all back home, what is the grand overarching takeaway from Caballo and Nombre?
For me, it all circles right back to the title itself.
Mm-hmm.
Identity. Every single major character in this hour of television is actively struggling with their name and their place in the world. Walt is desperately trying to play the family man while having literally no family to go home to. Jesse is trying to play the respectable homeowner, despite being a traumatized criminal.
And the cousins.
Yeah.
They're the only people in the episode who seem to know exactly who they are and what their purpose is.
And that clarity is exactly why they are so utterly terrifying. But consider the dark irony of it all. By the end of the episode, Walt has completely lost his good name with his wife and son. He is essentially a nobody in his own suburban home, but to the cartel. to the deadly cousins. He is definitively Walter White. He is the prime target.
He lost the wholesome identity he desperately wanted to keep, and he gained the dangerous identity that is actively trying to kill him.
That is the core tragedy. In trying to be somebody of importance, he just became a mark.
And he lost a perfectly good uncut pepperoni pizza in the process.
A profound tragedy on all fronts.
Well, before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We've spent this whole time talking about Walt's namelessness and the cousins hunting down his real name. But I want you to think about the house Jesse just bought. It isn't just a piece of real estate. By aggressively weaponizing the trauma of the basement meth lab to extort his parents, Jesse has fundamentally tethered his new sanctuary to the exact same poison that ruined his life in the first place. So you have to ask yourself, can a home that was bought using the leverage of toxic history ever truly be a safe haven?
That's a great question. You can't just paint over that kind of stain.
You really can. Well, there you have it, a complete deep dive into the desert of Caballo and Nombre. If you go back and rewatch this episode tonight, pay close attention to that blue tape on the windshield. Pay attention to the terrifying way the cousins move. And please, for the love of all that is good, do not ever throw a pizza on anyone's roof.
Please, leave the pizza eating to the professionals on your couch.
Thanks for listening. We will catch you on the next deep dive. Stay curious.